On this video, you will get hands-on Microsoft project and start getting it ready for you to input your tasks. Different from what many brave people endeavoring on project think, you should not start typing your tasks on it before to get the setup ready. Otherwise, you will have to stop and do these steps here along the way, which is not one organized way to work. Remember, if this is the first video that you are seeing, that you are landing on my channel, this video belongs to a series of 5 videos about a Microsoft project, and unless you are familiar with what is the project and the Microsoft project UI, I strongly recommend you to either click on the link up here to go to the video 1, or go up on the playlist by choosing the first video right here on the right side on your screen. Don't see the playlist view? No problem. Check down here on the description the link for the same. It's the very first thing that I put it on it. Let's see the intro and start configuring your new project. Here in configuration, you will care about the following aspects: project start date, project report date, project default calendar, and configuring your working hours, your calendar. Configure how Microsoft project should display and calculate dates, duration, and progress. Configure your customized lookup fields. And guys, this is a key configuration if you want to call yourself a organized person. Resource management. Add to Gantt view the most common and useful columns, including your brand new customized columns with lookup values inside. Project setup. Let's start setting up your project, and the very first thing you must define is the work calendar. You will be able to start your project setup by clicking on the project tab and then clicking on changing working time for you to see all available calendars. Here you should see the 3 default calendars: standard, 24 hours, and night shift, plus other calendars for each one of your resources. If you see other calendars here that are not the ones that you should care or don't belong to this project, go to File, Info, Calendar, and delete the ones that should not be here. As most of project pop-ups, this one here is very simple, although not intuitive to handle. Here you can define the exact start and end hours for your project. You can use within the same project more than one calendar if you want to be extremely precise in tracking people's working hours. Let's see how it works. Down here on the bottom part, you see 2 tabs: exceptions and working weeks. Exceptions come first, and here's where you input the non-working days for your project. Right now, we are in October 2020 and Thanksgiving is coming up next month. So I'll inform here the upcoming holidays in November and in December. Once you define this, you are informing your tasks on the Gantt view. Microsoft Project will automatically consider these non-working periods and calculate your work accordingly, respecting that on these dates you won't be working. This is particularly important in order to create a realistic project, avoiding to assign work on holidays and eventually getting your work late because people won't be working. The tab right next is where you inform your regular working days and hours. It comes already pre-configured as working Monday to Friday from 8 to 5 p.m. with an interval for lunch between 12 p.m. and 1 p.m. This is the project default. You can change these defaults from the File tab. You can also choose to inform the non-working hours or completely customize the working hours by choosing set days to these specific working times. If you choose this last option, you have to inform the starting and end hour for each working day. You can create as many calendars as you need by clicking on Create a New Calendar, and you can even choose to duplicate from any existing calendar. This option helps you to not start from scratch if the deviations are not too different. Finally, once you define all calendars, you can click on the drop down here on the top and assign the calendars to your resources, if you have any. If you don't have any resource created, it is fine. You can also define calendars for them on the resource chart. Project information. Now let's define the project information, the parameters that your project will consider when you are inputting your tasks. Not to pay attention to this or not creating this will put your life in trouble, your work in trouble, because you will not understand why project is behaving the way it is. To access the project information, click on the Project tab and click on the button Project Information, or go to My Project Control tab and click on the Information button right here on the left side. Here you see only 5 fields. Start date, the official date where your project started or will start. Every single task of your entire project will consider this very date here as a starting point. Finish date. It's automatically calculated based on the duration and the dependencies of your tasks. Currently, it's also automatically defined unless you change it. Its current hour will always be 8 AM. If you are tracking an hourly project like a deployment, you may want to come back here more often in order to move the today marker on the timeline view to the current hour. As it is by default static on 8 AM every day, you may want to move to 9, 10, 11, 12 and make your view more aligned to the reality. Status date. Specify the status date. Project uses the status date to perform earn value calculation, identify the complete true date in the update project dialog box, and place progress lines. If you set the status date to NA, project will use the current date as the status date by default. Priority will be used by project to determine the resources and tasks priorities between multiple projects linked one to another. We won't be using this feature here because this is too advanced, but for you to know, this number goes from a range between 0 and 1000, so you can have up to 1000 projects linked one to another, you can imagine that, and by default the number is 500, so I'll just leave 500 here and be in peace. Scheduled from. If you want your tasks to be based on the beginning or the end of your project. Normally, most of the projects start from a point and moves on ahead as time goes by. But there are some projects where you have one deadline and you want to construct your project backwards. From the deadline backwards. So this is the configuration that you change in case you want your project to be like this, to be backwards. Calendar. Here is where you define the default calendar for your project, the ones that we just defined a few minutes ago. All your tasks start and end date will be calculated based on this calendar. Let's choose standard for this class. Custom fields. Here is where you put some order in home and work based on predefined standards. Half of the information that you want to control will be free text, and that's a mess. And if you are like me, you don't like mess. So as you don't like mess, you want to create custom fields and create lookups to always pick up which option you want instead of free typing to make your document clean and perfect. Custom fields can be found on Project tab here from right-clicking, also right-clicking from any existing task and choosing Insert Column. And also navigating all the way to the right of the Gantt view, you will see one static column called Add New Column. Just start typing there and you will create a new column. Pay attention that adding columns directly from the Gantt view, you will be creating free text columns, which means that you can input whatever information in it. It works and fits for your need. However, I don't like it as it's not one organized way to work. I rather prefer to come to custom fields and quickly create one lookup for the type of data that I need. So, how to do it? How do you create a lookup? Into the custom fields pop-up, first choose the type of data you want to manage. Several options are available. For this class, let's use text. Then choose any of these available fields to start manipulating them. These are predefined placeholders. Each type holds up to 20 to 30 custom fields, which is way more than enough for you to virtually control anything you want. Here I chose text 6 and rename it to division. This name is the one that will be appearing on the Gantt view. Then on custom attributes, instead of none, which means whatever you want to inform, click on lookup to start informing your predefined options. Here inform your list of options. I got some already created here. If you mark the checkbox, use a value from the table as default value, every time you create a new task, this column will receive a predefined value automatically. Always use automatic things whenever applicable, because that expedites your day-by-day work. Then on sorting, choose sort ascending for better usage and make sure the last checkbox allow additional items to be entered is not checked if you are sharing this document maintenance with someone else. If you are the sole maintainer, then you may mark this checkbox as it will grant you versatility to add new entries on the fly while you are maintaining your tasks. You can also import a list of options from another file or project by clicking on the button Import Lookup Values. Beside the lookup button, you see this other button, Formula. Here you can determine automated calculations based on other fields in order to enhance your management capabilities. Combined with graphical indicators button below, you are able to add automatic flags to your project based on a criteria. For instance, if your task has not started yet and the starting date of your task is minor than the current date, your task is delayed, right? Because it is 0%, it's not started. So using these two combinations, you can create one flag column and add lights, red, yellow, green, based on this calculation. And then you know visually when one task is late or not. Okay? See this help button down here on the left? It's actually quite useful. If you click on it, it will take you to a Microsoft web page for this very pop-up itself explaining how it works. It is great when you are in doubt of any feature and want to know more. In my case, I also use this button to know more details about some things that I'm explaining now. Now that you got this custom field created, let's add it to the Gantt view. Let's see the screen. First, click on the Task tab and then click on the very first button on the left to change your view and make sure that you are on the Gantt view. Now here, this is my recommended column setup for you. ID, resource names, task name, predecessor, successor, percentage complete, duration, start, finish, and task mode. And let's add our new custom field, division. There are a few other extra fields in order to ensure that the macros that I developed will work here. Just make sure they are there and they are visible. I will further create one video explaining how this custom tab works. Please add applicable, baseline 1 duration, baseline 1 start, and baseline 1 finish. Resource management. On this screen, the first thing you are going to do is to click on Resource Sheet, the very first button on the left. You observe that the bottom panel will change from Gantt chart. Many people will get lost on project once this window switch happens, because once you switch the ribbons and even click on some buttons, the bottom layer doesn't change accordingly. So if you are on the resource sheet, project will remain there forever until you click back on the Gantt chart. So how to go back to Gantt chart? Click on Task. On the very first button, click on Gantt chart. Here in resource sheet, you will input the name of people that you will manage under this project. Here I add some names just for illustration. But what are all these columns about? Let's see the screen. The little blue exclamation column. You will see it everywhere on project. It will show you any deviation that an entry could have. Examples are different calendar, different task type, there is a comment for this entry, there is a date restriction, the resource is overallocated, etc. Resource name, the name of the person or the asset that is being part of your project. Type, the type of the resource. It could be work when it's a person, material when it's a consumable, or cost when it's budget. Material. This is the unit of the resource and it's only applicable for the type material. It means that if you have wood, you can define the material of the wood, like the weight, so it can be 1 ton or 1 kilo or 1 pound or 50 pounds or 100 pounds, whatever. So this is material about. Initials, the resource name first letter. It's populated automatically and you can update it if you want. Group, to which work group or division the resource belongs. Max, how much the resource could be allocated? Normally 100% of his or her available working hours. SRD rate stands for standard rate, means how much should you pay for the resource hourly. This is an American thing, to calculate people's salary in hours. In the majority part of the world, the salary is calculated in months. OVT rate stands for overtime rate. How much you pay this person if he works more than 100%. Cost use, applicable for materials only. If you have any extra cost for using this material, for instance, if you are using boxes, but you need to pay someone to fold the box. So one person can fold, let's say, 500 boxes a day. So how much costs that person a day of work? X amount of dollars. Divide that by 500 boxes. This is the cost that you put here, the cost of using one box. Following? Accrue. How the cost should be calculated? Once you start using resource, once the allocation is at 100% or prorated, the flow is prorated. Base calendar. Here is where you assign a different calendar for different people. For instance, if you have shifts in North America and shifts in India, you may want to have an Indian working time frame for an Indian folk and an American working time frame for an American folk. These are the ones that we defined back there on the project tab, those calendars. Code. If that resource has a unique code, for instance, one employee ID or one asset ID, this is the place to inform it. During video 4, you will see me over allocating people because I will put several tasks to work in parallel. It's not necessarily that you have to fix this unless you are strictly controlling the cost per hour per resource. If you need to control cost per hour per resource, you need to level your resource. So how to level your resource? Here on the screen, you have these buttons for leveling resource or leveling all. If you simply click on it, your project will magically level the whole file, and then no resource will be overallocated anymore in just one click. If your project is connected to your corporation Active Directory, you are able to pull out the resources directly from it by clicking on the Add Resource button. Resource pool is a feature that we won't be using in this class, but for you to know, if you have more than one project linked one to another, you have resources here and there. Or if your project files are connected to your Active Directory, you are pulling resources from there as well. And remember, on the configuration pop-up on the project tab, remember data priority. So data priority between different project files will determine if one resource will be used here or used on the other project. And here's where you see the pool. Okay? Finally, if you click on any resource twice or click on the button information, a pop-up window will appear where you will be able to see the same details plus a availability calendar where you are able to specify from when to when a resource will be available. These dates will be automatically reflected on the tasks if you assign them to resources that have such limitation. Now folks, the most not obvious configuration that one software could have that is strictly related to every document that you create. Let's see this screen. Click on File, then click on Options, and then click on Schedule. In here, pay attention to this first set of drop-downs. Week starts on and fiscal year starts on are more useful for enterprise programs or Jewish people who have the fiscal year start in October and their working days start on Sunday. I know it because I work in a Jewish company, so that's why I know these details and I know why these things are important. Now comes the gold. Let's see the screen quickly. The full start and end time. See these two fields. Remember back there when we were configuring our calendar and I told you these are the full start and date and you can configure in project? This is where you configure. Here is where you see the 8 AM and 5 PM and then you can change here. Once you change here and save it here, it will affect automatically the standard calendar. And if you chose the standard calendar for your project, then all the dates are changed automatically from here. Hours per day. When setting up your tasks, I will show you that you can input the duration in a variety of possible ways. We can see them here in Advanced. The only precise metrics are minutes and hours. All others will be calculated based on the amount of hours per day that you configured here. For instance, if you define that instead of 8, which is the default, you work 3 hours a day because you are a freelancer and you work from Monday to Friday every night, so your day is 3 hours, not 8 hours, right? Following? If you go to your task, to the Gantt chart, and then on that task you inform 1 day duration, project will go to this field here and query, hey, how much is a day duration? It's 3, okay, so that counts as 3 hours. But if you go there and you forgot that you put the 3 hours here and you inform 8 hours there, remember, minutes and hours are precise. All the rest of measurements are relative. If you put 8 hours, project will calculate 8 hours, and 8 hours means 3 hours of the first day, plus 3 hours of the second day, plus 2 hours of the third day. So project will create one time frame for that task that lasts almost 3 days, because we informed 8 hour duration and your regular day long duration is 3 hours. Following? Complicated? You know, better you save this video and this chapter to refer to this explanation again later if you were in doubt about why project is behaving the way it is. Hours per week and days per month follow the same logic. If you work 8 hours a day and 5 days a week, then your amount of working hours per week is 40 hours, right? Make sure to inform it here. In our previous sample, if I inform 3 hours a day as hours per day, then in hours per week, I should have informed 15 hours. Same goes for days per month. In average, we work 21 business days per month, assuming that you work from Monday to Friday. A little below, you'll find these two wild important fields. Duration is entered in. This one controls how project will understand and calculate your project duration. For instance, if you have one group of 3 tasks, and each task has 80 hours duration, and one is linked to another, just finish to start one after another, your group will take 3 days to be completed, right? Because each task has 80 hours duration and your default duration is 80 hours, so your day is 80 hours. So 3 days is the duration of that group. But if you leave duration is entered in hours, not in days, project will show you 24 hours, not 3 days. And why is that? Because 8 plus 8 plus 8 is equal to 24. So that may mislead you when you see that group, because the project will show you 24 hours and not 3 days, alright? The default for this field is days. So unless you are handling one deployment or one hour by hour work, leave in days. It's better for you to understand. To the other extreme, if you are handling one program that lasts for years and you want to track your progress on weeks or months, then you may change this to weeks or months, because it's easier to see 6 months than 180 days. Alright? Work is entered in. This one is simple to explain. This is the amount of time that each resource will spend on that task. It's quite similar to duration, but at the resource perspective. If you assign one resource to one task that lasts 8 hours, that resource will account 8 hours of work. If you assign one resource to 2 tasks of 8 hours each, that resource will account 16 hours of work. That's it. And here is asking you how you want to measure it. In days, in hours, in weeks, in months. The default is hour. Hour is easy to handle, so leave your hours there. So you guys following? Everything here is related one to another. The calendar, the hour duration, the task duration, and the resources is all tied up one to another. There is no right or wrong on this configuration. All depends on which type of project you are managing. I'll demonstrate on video 4 all of these tiers and why these configurations are so important there. This is not project management best practice. This is pure Microsoft project, the way the tool was built. The one you guys are seeing here on the screen is the version 2016, and the latest version, the version 2020, is a lot more simpler, with a lot better UI and a lot more collaborative. In some point of time, I will also create one video about this new version. Don't get frustrated, folks. This tool is really complicated, but not impossible. As any tool, it requires training, and eventually you will get the necessary skills to use it. Refer to this video all the time that you are creating a new project until you will get up to speed with everything you need to get started. And most important, to not miss any of the important configuration that you need to do, otherwise your life will be miserable. Aren't you subscribed yet? Come on, man. You are seeing a series and you made all the way until here, you are definitively liking, right? The button is down here on the bottom right corner, just waiting for you to click on it and give me an incredible help towards growing my little channel. Please give me this hand. Ready to start creating your brand new project? Here on the screen, you may be seeing already the link to the video 4. Click on it and let's create your brand new project.